Well, good morning. We're got back into Florida late last night. I'm back in Tallahassee. We were spent a lot of time in Iowa over the last week. We did a town hall on CNN last night in Des Moines, which was great. We had a great crowd, and we're continuing to build a lot of support. I think everybody who's been involved in these caucuses that sees what we're doing on the ground says we're ahead of where anyone else has ever been, and that's going to really pay off for us on caucus night. So we're looking forward to that, and looking forward to continue to build support. My wife, Casey, was also out and about identifying people that are soft support for other candidates or even undecided. And she does a great job of flipping them over to us. And so she's been out and about in Iowa doing a lot of great work, working with a lot of our great volunteers. We're hoping that there's going to be a debate in Iowa in January. I've committed to it. I don't know that either Donald Trump or Nikki Haley have been willing to commit to do a debate. I think if you're not willing to debate in Iowa on the eve of the caucus, that shows the voters a lot about you and about your willingness to engage on these issues. So I want to debate. I'll be there. We did the town hall last night on CNN. We're hoping to be able to do some with some other media outlets as well. Ultimately, you got to show up and you got to answer people's questions. And that's what we've been doing. And that's what we're going to continue to do all the way up until caucus night. But the notion that you just don't show up and you don't answer questions, you're not willing to debate, that's going to be meaningful to a lot of voters, because ultimately it's about them, and it's about them being able to make the best decision about who they want to see as the candidate going forward for the Republican Party. And I'll be there, and we'll make sure that we get the job done. So we're going to be back in Iowa this weekend. We're going to continue to be moving around all parts of the state. We really appreciate the organization that's there. We appreciate all the volunteers, people that are going to be working these precincts. Really, really a monumental undertaking. And it's great to see so many people that are passionate about the future of the country. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
We'll start with Caleb McCullough from Lee. Caleb, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. Hey, Governor, thanks for holding this call. On the debate that you mentioned, just looking at that as the potential to be a debate between yourself and Nikki Haley. I mean, if we're looking at the latest Iowa poll, Donald Trump has over 50% of support in that poll. Haley has mentioned, she wants Donald Trump to be there. That's one of the reasons that her campaign has not committed yet. Do you think it's going to be, I guess, all that useful for Iowa voters to see that debate between the two of you just a few days before the caucus, when it really is kind of Donald Trump's caucus to lose based on polling?
Well, yeah, but I think you guys we've been through this with the caucuses and how the polling does not predict what the final result's going to be. People can poll one way, and they don't produce the caucus goers on election day. And I think we're seeing that. And I think people who are in the know recognize that it's a much different picture on that. So look, I'm going to show up. I think every time I have an opportunity to go and answer questions and talk to people in Iowa directly, that gives me an opportunity to win undecided voters. It gives me an opportunity to show people that may be leaning to somebody like a Haley why I'm a better choice. And then it also gives me an opportunity to take people that are leaning towards Donald Trump as to why I'm a better choice. What we find when we're out on the ground, when people who are nominal Trump supporters come, we convert them, we flip them. So he does have a base of support that'll be with him, but a lot of what you see in these polls is he's the one they know. He's got the name ID, but if they see that there's an alternative, conservative alternative that they can have confidence in, they're absolutely willing to go there. You're going to continue to see more and more of that as we get closer to January 15th. Now, I also think it would be it's a good contrast just to show, and I think people in Iowa are catching on to this about Haley really represents the failed political establishment of yesteryear. I think if you look at the position she's taken, talking about doxing people on social media, she said on her first day in office, I want your names for people that are using social media. But we know as conservatives, that's been used for cancel culture. It's been used to malign conservatives. People have lost jobs and stuff because of those types of attacks. And so that's a total abuse of government. We would never indulge in anything like that. She also said that having a limit on immigration was wrong, that it should be, you talk to CEOs and let them import who they want. But we know that some of these CEOs, they would import cheap labor to undercut American workers, and that would not be good for American wages. And so that's more of a corporatist position that she's taken. She even refused to support Florida's legislation. I know Iowa's worked on this to not have these gender surgeries on the minors. I signed the bill. She said the law shouldn't have anything to do with it. So I think on issue after issue, and then you look at some of the people that are supporting her, liberal executives on Wall Street, rallying people from these big banks who were very liberal Democrats, people that have supported Hillary Clinton in the past, big people out in California who've been very, very liberal, very hostile to Donald Trump when he was president, for example. That really is, I think, par for the course for a candidate who has said the reason she got into politics was because of Hillary Clinton. Not Ronald Reagan, not Margaret Thatcher, but Hillary Clinton. So I think that says a lot. I think people are starting to see that, but certainly a one-on-one debate, we would be able to really see that contrast very sharply. And I think it would be a contrast that would benefit me vis-a-vis Nikki Haley in terms of these Iowa caucus voters.
Dave Price, Great TV.
Hey, good morning, Governor. Thanks for joining us after what was probably a nap overnight. You largely, when you're in our state, kind of make the cerebral comparison between you and Trump, right? You're the guy who gets stuff done. Nikki Haley has recently kind of made her pitch that Trump is chaos, she would not be chaos. Governor Reynolds and Bob Vanderplatz have both talked about that you versus Trump, you offer a different moral background between the two of you. I don't know that I've heard you make that comparison. Are you fundamentally a different kind of person? And so for these caucus goers looking between you and Trump, how do you see yourself different fundamentally from him? Not policy stuff, but just fundamentally the day-to-day. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, I consider myself a servant leader. It's not about me. I have a role to be able to serve the people that I represent. Yes, it's a leadership role, both as governor and as president, but ultimately it's not about me. It's not about my issues. It's about your issues, your family's issues, and the country's issues. And that's a much different frame of mind, I think, than Trump is really an insular campaign about him. That's just not how I am. I'm not a ruler. I'm a servant. I'm also understanding about my role as a parent of a first grader, kindergartner, and a preschooler. My wife and I both believe that we have the responsibility to be good role models for our kids, and that's what drives us. But I think that's exemplified in how you conduct yourself in office, how you conduct yourself as a candidate, how you conduct yourself as president of the United States. I want people to know that supporting me as president, that when I get up there, obviously I'm going to take care of business, but I'm going to be able to conduct myself in a way they're going to be able to be proud of. They're not going to have to make excuses for me. I'll go, I'll lead, we'll execute, get the job done, and we'll do it in a way that I think really aims higher.
Skylar Talal, KGAN.
Hi, Governor. Thank you for holding this. So last night during the town hall, you got asked about possibly consolidating support behind one candidate to maybe have a more, a bigger competitor against Trump. You said you felt that's what the Iowa caucuses were for. So my question is, are you expecting candidates to throw their support behind you if you prove to be the most competitive at the caucuses? And would you do the same if it was somebody else?
I don't really know what these other candidates will do. I mean, I think that the fact that some people ran to begin with, to me, there wasn't necessarily a path. So not everyone gets into these races because they think that they have a path to win. That's the only reason I got in. I want to be the nominee president and get the job done for people. I don't have any other basis to do it. I don't need to be getting media attention or anything like that. But here's just the basic undeniable truth about where we are in terms of this party, that the only person running that can get significant support from core Republicans and conservative voters is me. Haley she cannot pierce into that. So if it's a choice between Trump and Haley, conservatives are going to go with Trump. Even the conservatives that are supporting me, say in Iowa, because they see me as a superior conservative alternative to Trump, they are not going to go embrace a candidate who represents the failed Republican establishment of yesteryear. It's just not going to happen. And you see that in every piece of data that there is. We analyzed it and said the same thing. So the reality is I'm the only one that could possibly defeat Donald Trump in a primary and a one-on-one because I have the ability to win voters who are very conservative, somewhat conservative, in a way that the other candidates just simply cannot. I think Iowa's going to be able to show that very clearly, given the demographics, the ideological demographics of the caucus. And it should be very clear on the night of January 15th that this is a two-person race between Donald Trump and myself.
Clay Masters, Iowa Public Radio. Clay.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Governor. You picked up the endorsements of Governor Reynolds, Bob Vanderplatz. You've completed the 99 county tour. Doesn't sound like this debate is likely going to happen. I mean, what's left to try to build on some kind of momentum as you round the corner for January 15th?
Well, we're going to be doing some other stuff, I think. We're going to try to push for these, maybe multiple debates in Iowa. I mean, I'm willing to do more than one. We are going to hopefully do some more televised town halls. We're working with some of the other networks on that. I do think that, we may see some more opportunities too. I mean, you can't have these contests for president of the United States and not have the candidates engage in it. So I do think that will help me. Trump has not been debating, but people in August and September and in November, that's one thing. But when you get into the election year, into January, I do think it's going to matter. I do think people are going to look at that and say, well, hold on. I don't owe you any, nobody owes any candidate their vote. Candidate's got to earn the vote. So we're going to be doing all available options that we can do to be able to press the case, but we will be on the ground. And whether it's 100 people, whether it's 200 people, whether it's bigger than that, when we get undecided voters to come out, hear the message, when they get to ask me questions, we sign them up to commit to caucus. And we've got a massive number of caucus commitments. We're just going to keep building on that and then turning them out on caucus night. I know that there's no other campaign doing anything close to what we're doing. And the history and the reason why this is going on is because that's historically how you do well in these things. And so we're doing it to perform well there. And I think some of the other candidates are not. I think the candidates that rely on kind of the media pumping them up or to pay for television ads, if there's nothing beneath that, it typically doesn't go as well on caucus night. But I'm open. Look, you got to show up to debate. Donald Trump should debate. Nikki Haley should debate. I'm ready to go.
Katie Aiken, Des Moines Register.
Governor, you talked about this a little bit in your last answer, but zooming out beyond the borders of Iowa, how important is the Iowa caucus for you in terms of being able to win the next contests like New Hampshire and South Carolina?
So I don't think it's unique to me. And I think people have pointed out, well, you've done all 99 counties, but, Ted Cruz won Iowa and Santorum and Huckabee, and they didn't win the nominations. But those were much different situations. This is a situation where you have a former president who is the most famous person in politics. He gets an extraordinary and an inordinate amount of media attention. Obviously, there's all these legal cases that came over the summer, which while may be very detrimental in a general election, ultimately have helped him with sympathy in the primary. So it's just a different situation. And I think the fact that Iowa's first, it's like, okay, how do conservative voters make sense of this? You have the former president. Obviously, he's now getting up in years. He's running on a lot of the same things he ran on in 2016 and didn't deliver. He's got a lot of things personally that he's running for in terms of retribution that he's talking about. And so that's kind of one option. And then you have me. I'm a conservative governor who's delivered massive results for my state. I've led on every single issue that Republicans care about and won on every single issue that Republicans care about. And I would be somebody that would allow us to put our best foot forward in a general election, having shown how to win Florida by a record margin, but get into office and deliver on all these things over a 2-term, 8-year period, which I think is really, really significant. So that's going to be the choice. And because of just the unique circumstances that we face here, I think the fact that the first-time voters are able to render judgment is just going to be more significant than in the past. It's 100% true. You can win Iowa. That does not guarantee you anything. And most people that have won the nomination recently have not won Iowa. But I think that the caucuses are more important this year. And I think a lot of the voters on the ground sense that they have an opportunity to really change the trajectory of the country.
Isaac Hamlet, WOI. Isaac. Isaac, don't forget to unmute, please. All right, we'll come back to you, Isaac. Sharon Wren, Davenport, WHBF. Sharon?
Good morning, Governor DeSantis. I'm sure you're appreciating the warmer temperatures back home.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I read a news article online yesterday that said you were discussing partially moving the Department of Agriculture to Iowa. Could you elaborate on that a bit? Would that be the entire department or just some research facilities like moved during the Trump administration?
So it potentially could be the whole thing. And basically, I've been running on the idea that there's been too much power accumulated in Washington, that you have this massive administrative state that's developed, which is separate and distinct now from the body of the American people. It's a separate bureaucratic class that rules over we the people. That's not what the founding fathers intended. And there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to, limit the size and the scope of the bureaucracy and reconstitutionalize the federal government so that we have 3 branches of government, not 4. But one of the things you can also do to make these agencies more reflective of the people that they're intended to serve is to take them out of Washington, D.C. And so instead of having the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department in D.C., you can have it in Oklahoma. Instead of having Department of Agriculture, you can have it at Iowa. So we got a lot of interest in doing this as I've been campaigning in Iowa. So I said, listen, Iowa will have first dibs on the Department of Agriculture. We'll work with the people in Iowa to see, what they would want, how they would want to do it. But what I'd like to see is if you have an agency like USDA, I'd like to see it staffed by people who have a familiarity with what's going on in places like Iowa, that understand what they're doing in terms of agriculture and farming, and they're not just pointy-headed bureaucrats that are imposing an agenda without having any concept of how that's actually impacting people's daily lives and their professions. And so I think it's going to be more than just agriculture. We want to really look to get power outside of Washington. And if Iowa doesn't want it, we'll offer it others. But I think a lot of people think it'd be a good idea.
Ophelia Jacobson, KCCI.
Hey, Governor, thanks for hosting this conference. Fellow Floridian here, living in Iowa now, but wanted to ask you about the endorsement from New Hampshire Governor Chris Anunu of Nikki Haley. Obviously, the primary doesn't end after the caucuses on January 15th, and you've spent a lot of time here. What is your strategy looking ahead past the caucuses to go on to those other states like New Hampshire and South Carolina?
Well, we've got great organizations on the ground in both of those states, both New Hampshire and South Carolina, the early states. You now have Nevada, which was supposed to have a primary in February. The state party changed it to a caucus. The state party people are basically trying to rig it for Trump. And so the delegates are going to be done on the caucus. There is going to be a primary, but it's just a beauty contest. Incidentally, Nikki Haley is doing the Nevada primary where she has no chance to win delegates. I'm doing the Nevada caucus. So we're going to win delegates in Nevada. And I think if you're planning to win the nomination, why would you not compete to win delegates, especially when it's proportional allocation? So I think that shows, her strategy is not really to win, because she definitely would have done that. And I get it that the state party in Nevada is partial to Trump, but you know what? The general election, Democrats are going to do whatever they can to stop us. So you got to be willing to fight and win under more difficult circumstances. So we're going to do all of those. And I think that I think we've got a great footprint. We've got a lot of good support in terms of our activists. And then what happens is once people start voting, Iowa happens. Like I said, I think it'll be a 2-person race at that point. Then you start to see the takeoff and the rest of the states with kind of the broader broader electorate. But I think we've done a lot of good work on the ground to line up. I mean, for example, in New Hampshire, we've got like 63 state legislative endorsements just in the state of New Hampshire. That's more than the former president. I think Nikki Haley has just a handful of endorsements from the New Hampshire legislature. And so we've done the same in South Carolina. I have way more endorsements from state legislators in South Carolina than Nikki Haley does. And she was governor of South Carolina. And part of the reason they endorsed me over her was because they remember when she was governor of South Carolina, and they didn't think that she was a strong conservative leader. So yes, we're going to be all those. I will be in New Hampshire this week. We were in South Carolina recently doing a full day of activities, some town halls, and I spoke at the Citadel Republican dinner. But I think that Iowa's first, and we've put a lot of emphasis on that because we think that that's going to have a big impact on how everyone sees the primary after people vote in Iowa.
Mackenzie Laporte, KHQA. Mackenzie.
Yes, thanks, Governor, for having this and answering some of our questions. Now that your 99 county tour in Iowa is all wrapped up, after speaking to some of the community members and getting out there, what do you feel that Iowa voters are prioritizing, and how do you plan to honor those priorities?
Well, it's a great question. I think they're prioritizing a number of things. One, the border situation, they want it taken care of. I will get that done. Obviously, Donald Trump said he was going to build the wall, but that didn't get done. I will get all this done. We'll be very strong against the Mexican drug cartels. We're not going to allow this to happen to our country, and we'll make sure that we deport people that have come illegally, particularly 8 million that have come just under Joe Biden's presidency. Other thing is the economy, the prices that people are paying. I've talked to a lot of folks who, I mean, it's almost like you could be in one part of the state and another, and you hear the same things about how high grocery costs have gotten, how difficult it is to afford to buy a home because of the high interest rates, the role of the bureaucracy in making life more difficult for small businesses and farmers, the need to have all of the above energy policy, particularly opening up more domestic energy for production. So we're going to lower gas prices, lower energy costs. So all of those things are going to be really important on getting the American dream restored in this country. They also want to see the Washington overhauled. We need a change agent to go up there. You can't just rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic. They want to see things like term limits for members of Congress, which I support, a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution so that Congress can't just spend us into oblivion, give the president a line item veto so he can veto pork barrel projects, which have gotten so numerous in the last 5 or 6 years. We also want to see things like moving agencies out of Washington, D.C. We want to hold the bureaucrats accountable in the weaponization of government. So you see a real dissatisfaction with how the government has just become so divorced from the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of the American people. So we represent the change that people are looking for, and it's going to make a big difference in the lives, not just of Iowans, but of Americans.
Joe Harris, Omaha, WOWT. Joe?
Hey, thank you, Governor. This question kind of touches on what somebody asked in the chat, but are high-level endorsements really doing any good? I mean, you had Governor Kim Reynolds in Iowa, and Trump has pushed above 50% there, according to recent polling.
No, they're doing great. I mean, I think that when you have an organization like Governor Reynolds, Bob Vanderplaats, these folks are going to be activated. They are activated. It's going to carry us all through the caucus night, and we're going to be in really good stead when that happens. For all these polls, I mean, we've been through this with these polls. How many times? Trump was supposed to run away with the caucus in 2016. He didn't win it. Other folks in 2012, Santorum won. He was so far behind, but at the beginning of December, you had the same thing in 2008. So this is just what happens. But when you have those types of folks supporting you, it really comes with an organization that can help turn out the vote for you. And I talk to people when I'm on the ground, and they're just like, look, I'm in my neighborhood, we're all for you. They're like, I don't know where they're getting the polls, but like all the people that I know that voted for Trump in 16, you know, they're for you. So I think you guys are going to be surprised at how that turns out. But yes, the endorsements are positive, and that will be apparent, I think, on caucus night.
Clayton Anderson, KTIV. Clayton.
Thanks, Governor. My quick question kind of follows up on Joe's there. With there being a little bit over a month till the caucus date, you've raised 3% in that Des Moines Register poll. What are you hopeful that Kim Reynolds, as governor of the state that you'll be caucusing in, can do to try to give you more of a boost, maybe stump for you ahead of this big caucus date? And do you think there's still time for that endorsement to provide you a considerable boost and maybe help you close that gap?
Well, it's already boosted. I mean, you know, we have tens of thousands of caucus commitments. We're adding more, you know, a bunch every day. More and more people are starting to make decisions. This is something that breaks late. You know, in that poll, you know, to the extent that people are going to take that, 46% haven't made up their mind entirely. And there's a lot of nominal Trump supporters who have not fully decided to go with him and are open to another candidate. And that's what we're seeing on the ground. And yes, so it's already helped us because of the amount of people that we already have committed to caucus for us. And we're going to continue to add that. So we're going to go into this caucus with a huge base of support. And there's a lot of enthusiasm about what people are seeing on the ground. So we're excited about it.
Our last question from Kay Henderson, Radio Iowa. She wasn't able to utilize the audio capabilities here, but she's written it in the chat. It says, last night you said former President Trump has drifted to the left. On what issues other than abortion, which you cited on CNN, has Trump drifted left?
Well, it's a great question. So he has proposed creating 10 new cities, that he would spend massive amounts of money to create new cities. I think that that's a huge waste of money. Clearly, he added a lot to the debt while he was president, but now to be proposing a massive amount of new spending to create new cities, I think is just you know, something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we need to get real with how this government is spending money. The government is spending way too much money. They spent way too much during COVID. They've locked in levels that are much higher than what we thought, or that what was necessary. And they need to get back to a much more fiscally sustainable posture. That's going to require presidential leadership. Obviously, he's not going to be able to do that if he's saying create these new smart cities. The other thing he's done recently is he celebrated BLM. He got a supposed endorsement from someone who had been there, and he was bragging about that on his social media, saying, you know, I'm so glad to have this support of this particular gentleman, as well as BLM. And so he really embraced BLM. But of course, BLM was responsible for massive riots in the summer of 2020. That cost billions of dollars. It led to a number of deaths. And it was something that actually happened under his watch as president of the United States. He was tweeting law and order when that was going on, but he didn't do anything to ensure law and order. And so I think for him to be embracing the BLM movement shows that if someone kisses his ring, then he'll embrace them, regardless of whether they're standing for conservative values or conservative principles. And I don't know, and just the opposite, you know, you have like a Governor Reynolds and Bob Vander Plaats, they endorse me, and they've got sterling conservative records, and he go out and trash them. It's really all about him. But I think the embrace of the BLM was a big mistake.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Keep an eye out for our next invite.